Welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Senaparatna. Grab your favorite drink, get yourself a snack. Today calls for two, actually, and we'll get started. Today I have a hint of lime chips that are some of my faves, and I'm drinking a Fanta with it. We're changing things up and getting wild around here, so let's get real. I recently stayed somewhere that I kind of needed to talk about just because was one of those moments in your life where you're like, why am I doing this? I am a pretty brave person. I am not someone that gets super intimidated by a low rent hotel. Let's just put it that way. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents stayed at this place called the Pink Flamingo, and it has been kind of like the pinnacle of was it as bad as the Pink Flamingo? No. And so when I was telling my mom about my weekend, she went, was it as bad as the Pink Flamingo? And I said, I sat there praying for the Pink Flamingo. So I actually went on a trip by myself, and I went to a church, which is normal and something that we do quite often. And one of the things that most people don't know about our ministry is most of the time we book the hotels. Now, we started doing this because we get points, and we really wanted to make it easy for churches. Now, I have to be honest with you, that was a mistake this time, 100%, because I only found one hotel in the town. The other one they were all outside of the town, and so I found this one hotel that I knew I'd stayed at when my daughter was very young. And it's no longer that brand name. Now it's kind of an independently owned company. And I drove to get there. I walked in and there is no one at the front desk, which in my opinion, like, it happens, right? But it wasn't anyone for 15 minutes. Like, it was a full, like, I was there roaming around, went up and down the hallways kind of thing. Like, it was a little weird, and it was really very disheveled. That's a good way to put it. It was very disheveled. I looked up, and I used to work in a school and know a smidge about like fire department things, and like, because we had like, the things that would go off. And um I looked at their box, and they had pulled all of the wires out, and they were all hanging. And I thought, well, that's strange to have a firebox with all the alarms and everything being detached. Okay, well, that's bizarre. Okay. All right, Jen, it's fine. Like, that must just be their backup, right? Like, that's totally the backup. That's not actually the fire department connected any way, shape, or form, that every wire is hanging out. That's fine. So finally, I find this little thing that you're supposed to push a button. I pushed the button and waited, and then I waited, and then I waited some more. The guy comes out, very sweet man, comes out, and he was like, oh, great. And so we go through this whole process, and I'm like, I have a reservation. And he was like, no, you don't. And I'm like, if I don't, can I leave? Like, that's what I first thought, but maybe that should have been where I was like, you know what, if I don't have a reservation, see you later. And then he was like, oh, you haven't paid. And I'm like, oh, but I booked through a third party. And it was like this whole, I had to call my husband. It was like a whole thing. So finally he like says, your room is this way. And it wasn't, by the way. I went that way, and that was not where my hotel room was. And I realized at that moment why they had taken the wires out of the wall, because believe the employees, or maybe long-term residents of the hotel, because a lot of times people that are working construction and stuff stay in these type of hotels for a long period of time. They actually were all smoking in the hallways, which would have turned on the fire alarms if they were on, which they were not, because there was smoking in the hallway. Anyway, so I get in my car, I go park, because he's like, you can park over here, you can park over there. There was no over there. I don't know what he was talking about, because I went over there and there was no parking lot. But that's where anyway, it was very confusing, but that's fine. I found a parking lot, I parked, I walked in, and much to my amazement. At this point, you know, I maybe shouldn't have been amazed. I guess I walked through a hallway of every piece of furniture that could be out was out, including mattresses and towels and hardware from pretty much every part of the room, like toilet paper holders, like there were piles of those. It was the most interesting hallway to walk down. I was kind of like, maybe you should say, like, don't walk down this hall. I don't know. I looked into the pool area, decided to not look any further because it was a little scary. And I was like, okay, it's fine. You know what? They don't have a pool area. Not a big deal. We're just going to keep going. I get to my hotel room. And I was a little taken back. I got to be honest. I have been in hotel rooms that I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And that was kind of my feeling, to be honest with you. All of the pictures on the wall were actually sitting on the ground. They had taken all the mirrors and all of the photographs off the wall and put them on the ground. They had removed the TV stand and put it on top of a microwave, which was on top of a fridge. So the TV was like fridge, microwave, TV, which I'm like, okay, low, like, we're not in a high class situation. I knew how much money we'd paid for this. Not a big deal. So I went to shut my door and it didn't fully close. Like, it didn't lock. And I was like, okay, you know what? That's not something I'm super comfortable with as a single woman, like traveling here. I kind of would like a door that locks. So I went back and waited for 5 minutes for the guy to come back. And I said, I'd like to switch rooms. And he was like, why? What's wrong with your room? And I'm like, well, I could go down a list of things at this point. Because, like, the carpet had been removed but, like, placed back on. So it wasn't actually attached to the floor anymore. Which, okay, I can be in a room that's kind of like a carpet/rug situation. Not a big deal. And I said, you know, the room doesn't have a lock. And he was like, ma'am, you don't need a lock. No one needs a lock here. It's a safe place. And I was like, okay, glad that you feel that way because you work here. Super proud of you. But a lock's really important to me. And he's like, ma'am, I'm not giving you another room. So I got a little upset. I'll be honest with you. I did a lot of crying, and I called a friend and I called my husband, and it was very frustrating because I was like, what do I do? Now I'm kind of stuck in this hotel room. I don't know where to go. I preach the next morning and I don't know what to do. And I look out of my room and there's a door to outside, and they have taken off the latches. Like, there is no longer hardware on the door. It is just a piece of wood that you can push open and close. So anyone can come in or out of the hotel room at this point. Like, okay, so I actually go back with my husband on the phone and I said, I'd like my money back. I'm leaving. Because I'm like, when my husband said, why don't you just turn around and come home? We'll just call the church and say you can't make it. I was like, yes, 100%, let's do that. Like, there was no question in my mind that was the right thing to do. I was like, that's right, let's just get out of here. And eventually I went up to the desk and I said, I'd like my money back. And he was like, you can't have your money back. And I'm like, actually, I can, because you need to give me a room that locks. Like, that is something that I feel like is a fundamental part of being safe in a hotel. I know that you don't feel that way because you feel like it's safe. And so he was like, let me take your key. And he runs to my room and he was like, your room's fine. And I was like, yeah, no, it's not. Anyway, I'm like, you know what? Talk to my husband. And I have no idea what my husband said. I have no clue what he did or what he said. But the guy was like, fine, I'll give her another room and I'll give her a bigger room. Now, he did not give me a bigger room. He did not give me a nicer room. This room did have carpet that was attached. So kudos. It did have carpet that was attached to the ground and no longer slippery and slidey. The stuff on the walls was still off the walls. And, you know, it was weird. It was a weird room, but it had a lock. And so I was like, that's fine. No problem. And I remember that evening, I actually they have like those chairs in the hall, chairs in the the rooms. And so I put that against the door too, just because I felt like it was just really kind of a sketchy situation. And I just prayed. And it wasn't necessarily that I was like, Lord, save me. I was like, Lord, I don't want to give up. That's honestly where I was. I was like, Lord, I don't want to give up on doing ministry. Now, it was no one's fault that I was in this hotel room but myself. I'm the one that booked it. Like, I'm the one that did the research and got myself in this situation. This was no one else's fault. Because quite often people are like, how could the church put you in that hotel room? Oh, yeah, it wasn't the church's fault. In fact, the pastor the next day was like, I never would have put you there. And I was like, good to know. I just realized that I was so defeated and so just felt like, why am I doing this? That I just couldn't even function, to be honest with you. Like, the next morning I got up and I was like, Lord, I don't know that this isn't my last time doing this. I don't know that I can do this anymore. I am not a person that needs creature comforts. Like, I don't need to be in a fancy hotel. I don't even need to be in a hotel that has free breakfast. Like, I do love a free breakfast. I actually love when they give you little shampoos. This place had no soap, had no shampoos. I did not even use their towels. I actually was like, they were so dirty that I was uncomfortable using their towels. Like, it was just not a situation that I ever wanted to be in again. And that was, so I had service that morning and I'm driving home and I'm like, Lord, I need you because I don't want to be in this situation again. I felt really unsafe and I felt really alone. And he just reminded me that I'm never alone. And it was really hard because I knew that I wasn't alone. Like, I knew God was there with me. You always know that in the back of your head. And I did sleep really well that night, which was quite miraculous. I actually woke up and the bags under my eyes were gone because I must have slept so much. And I really believe that was like a God thing for me, that he just kind of said, and Jenny is out. She is just going to be out and we will wake her up and she will get out of here. And that is how we're going to deal with this. And that was just such a blessing. But I know that quite often our circumstances can look really crazy and can look like, how can I do this anymore, right? You look around and you go, how can I do this anymore? I just can't do this anymore. And it was that reminder for me that God is faithful and I just have to remain faithful. And it's really hard. It's hard to think that this upcoming weekend we're going to another hotel. And I'm like, I know that hotels used to be glamorous. They're not anymore. And I know which hotel we're going to because, once again, it's probably one I booked, which means that womp womp, it will be interesting. But God is faithful and he will supply all of my needs according to his riches and his glory. And I come home to a beautiful home. And so that is such a blessing to me that it's just temporary. And so whatever you're walking through at this moment right now, I just want you to remember it's temporary. It's not permanent. Even if it's permanent on earth, it's not permanent in heaven. Whatever you're walking through right now is temporary. And God loves you and he sees you in that dark and scary place. And he loves you and he is there to be with you. And I just want to encourage you to keep going. Keep going after him. Keep going after the better things that you want in life, and know that he will supply your needs according to his riches and glory. And that's what I'm holding on to right now as I'm going, do I continue this? Do I want to continue to go from church to church every Sunday and feel like a stranger and stay in these hotels that make me feel like less than? And I know that it's what God's called me to, so I will continue to be faithful and I will continue to follow after him. And your circumstances may feel just as overwhelming, probably more. And I want you to know that God sees you and keep going after him. Faithful, faithful, faithful. That's all we can do is be faithful. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I hope that this was encouraging. Maybe not. Maybe you're like, please don't ever call me to do what Jenny does. Yeah, probably not. That would be good because this isn't the greatest. I mean, it's great because God moves and the Sunday morning service was amazing. But I have to tell you, it's not easy. What God calls you to is not always easy. And it's okay to be discouraged, and it's okay to feel frustrated, and it's okay to cry out to God and say, Lord, this isn't what I thought it would look like. And know that He still is faithful to love you and take care of you, even in the darkest places. You can find me at Real Life with Jenny on Facebook, Instagram, and Be Real. You can also find me at christconnection.cc/Jenny. You can also support this ministry by going to buymeacoffee.com/Real Life with Jenny. You know my heart, and you know that life isn't always easy, and that I try to be as vulnerable with you as possible. This is maybe a little too vulnerable, I don't know. But it has been rough lately, and I have been discouraged and feeling like, Lord, are you sure this is what you want me to do? Because I can really go and get a different job. That would be perfectly fine. And then and God goes, no, I need you to continue to follow after me and follow what I've called you to do. And it's not easy. And I know that your life isn't always perfect either. Just remember, God loves you. And He sees where you are right now. And He's got a plan for you to make it good. This is just temporary. And God is faithful. I truly believe that. Have a great week.